221 BC. In Mexico, the city of Teotihuacan is expanding, on track to become ancient America's greatest metropolis. In Egypt, the city of Alexandria boasts a 130-meter lighthouse, one of the tallest buildings in the world. And in China, a team of craftsmen begins one of mankind's most incredible creations. More than 2,000 years later, in 1974, farmers digging a well near the Chinese city of Xian discovered their work. Strange fragments of clay, sculpted in human form. Chinese archaeologists dug test probes, which led to a staggering find. 8,000 clay warriors, infantry, archers, generals, cavalry, buried in 3 pits near the tomb of one of history's most powerful men. The brilliant soldier and ruthless conqueror called Xian Shi Huangdi. More than 2,000 years ago, he unified 7 warring kingdoms into a single empire called China, giving himself the title of First Emperor, and building himself one of the biggest pyramid tombs ever seen on Earth. An ancient Chinese author recorded the splendors of that tomb, its rivers and oceans made of mercury, its replicas of palaces, fully reproducing the emperor's earthly realm. But no ancient text said anything about its underground army. And nothing like the Terracotta warriors had ever been found, leaving archaeologists and an awestruck world to wonder. Why did China's first emperor order 8,000 life-size clay soldiers for his tomb? Something no Chinese ruler had ever done before. And how did his artists make those 8,000 statues, each nearly 2 meters tall and weighing up to 300 kilograms? Something no Chinese craftsman had ever done before. The vast achievement of the Terracotta warriors demands an explanation. Even for an emperor, they would have cost a fortune. Creating them would have required years of work and endless ingenuity, as workers struggled to make clay statues on a scale never attempted before. And when they were finally finished, they were buried out of sight for all time. Why did Xian Shi Huangdi go to all the trouble and expense of making them? Nearly 200 kilometers west of the first emperor's tomb, archaeologist Jiang Hongwei is in charge of another tomb where the search for answers begins. In 537 BC, some 300 years before the first emperor unified China, this gigantic pit was the tomb of Qing Jinggung, ruler of the small kingdom of Qing and the first emperor's ancestor. And these wooden boxes are grim reminders of what happened here on the day he was buried. The ritual killing of his entire court.
When Qin Jinggung passed away, he buried 186 living people with him. They were buried in these coffins. Each coffin was numbered, and each victim was also given a number. Every victim was buried in the coffin with his or her number. The position of every coffin had been pre-assigned.
Pride of place went to the rulers, ministers, and wives, assigned to the coffins nearest his own. Cruder caskets in the outer ranks held the royal craftsmen, bodyguards, and other useful commoners. All of them killed to serve their lord in death as they had in life. This was the biggest human sacrifice ever found in an ancient Chinese tomb. But it wasn't the only one.
Almost every big tomb would have 100 to 200 corpses. This is a massive number.
Body counts like these from royal tombs conjure up images of slaughter. But the evidence doesn't support a bloodbath. These are the bones of some of the people buried in Qing Jinggong's tomb. And according to archaeologist Jiang Zhongli, some of these people were happy, or at least willing, to die.
At
that time, people believed that there was another world where people could carry on their lives after death. Rulers, attendants, and followers were enjoying their lives with their masters when he was alive, so it was quite natural to follow him when he died. For them, death was another form of life.
Some people were terrified and unwilling to die, but some other people thought their lives were meaningless without their master, so they wanted to follow their master to death and considered this a big honor.
But how do you honorably kill the ones you love? Archaeologists found the secret in the bones.
This is a human skull uncovered from a coffin in the tomb. We tested the chemical composition of the skull and the hair and found that they both contain arsenic.
There were no traces of arsenic in the ground around the coffins, and that left only one possibility. Qin Jinggong had used arsenic to kill his closest associates.
Arsenic can be dissolved in alcohol. So we think that these victims drank arsenic wine and were poisoned to death.
When Qin Jinggong took his ministers, servants, and soldiers with him to the grave, he was following a 1,000-year-old Chinese tradition. Only 300 years later, the first emperor, the most powerful ruler in China's history, also buried officials, servants, entertainers, and 8,000 soldiers in his tomb. But they were made of clay. What had changed? According to author Guo Xingwen, ancient Chinese may have believed in human sacrifice, but that didn't mean they liked it.
Today, we regard this as an inhumane thing. In ancient times, it was considered inhumane as well. Most of the court officials weren't willing to die, but they didn't have any choice, since they would have been disloyal if they didn't. The ritual system required them to die. It would be their honor to follow the monarch, despite the fact that none of them would really like it.
Mass human sacrifice in China finally fell victim to an even bigger slaughter. Less than 65 years after Qin Jinggong's funeral, China's 7 kingdoms plunged into war. It was called the Time of the Warring States, and it lasted over 250 years. As generation after generation died by the thousands and populations declined, sacrificing hundreds of people for the afterlife became an unaffordable luxury.
At that time, human life became more important. As a consequence of years of war, the population had decreased significantly. Each state was struggling to maintain its population, since population means productivity.
By the time the first emperor ended decades of war and unified China, human sacrifices were rare, and rulers were substituting more humane ways of providing for their afterlives.
In a tomb about 300 years older than the first emperor, we found small pottery figurines some tens of centimeters high. This shows that pottery figurines were replacing living beings as burial objects. From that point on, tombs which we found had more and more stuff of this kind.
But nothing like this. The first emperor inherited the tradition of tiny tomb figurines and took it off the charts. His tomb figures were life-size, and no two of them seem alike. Their shoes, their bodies, and especially their faces, all seem different. Some believe that the 8,000 clay warriors are all individuals, but no one's ever crunched the numbers until now. In Wellington, New Zealand, facial recognition expert Glenn Cameron is about to try something no one's tried before. Using NeoFace, a facial recognition software that's been rated best in the world.
It is being used throughout Asia and around the world in border control, surveillance, immigration, and by the police. We can match around 1 million faces per second. So we're very proud of it, and we think it's going to do a good job at today's mission.
That mission is to analyze the faces of about 100 terracotta warriors, comparing eyes, noses, mouths, and other significant features, trying to find any that match.
Let's have a quick look at these top matches here. These two are the big, fatter chins. So here we have very similar chin lines, the big, thick chin, similar mouth position. Nose is slightly different, but the eyes, eyebrows, very different. There's a huge range of faces here, very individual, very individual. Whole head, very different in shape. Very different facial hair. A lot of difference in the eyes.